Guys, welcome back to Britt's Book Corner, and today's video is going to be my 2-week Camp NaNoWriMo check-in. Guys, so I feel like since this is just the end of week 1, I feel like I should talk to you guys just about overall my feelings and everything going into week 2. So I started day 1, super fun. I was super pumped. I got work done on my project and I was excited. I came in and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do this, it's gonna get done, and that's what it's gonna be. Day 2 came around. And day 2 was the first day I actually worked on all 3 projects. And day 2 was when I realized that things were going a lot faster than I thought they were going to go. And that faster thought in my head kind of threw out the whole 30-day, do this whole Camp NaNoWriMo thing for 30 days. Because in my mind, immediately, I thought of, I have to do this in 30 days. I have to make each one of these projects last 30 days. And I had that stuck in my head, and I was stressing over it, you guys. Like, I spent all day on day 2, all day on day 3, and all day yesterday just stressing over how to get these things to work themselves out, how I was going to work each of these projects to make them last 30 days. And it was really hard. It was really hard for me to think like, oh my God, I'm going to finish this early. And I purposely didn't start too early. I purposely only did 4 days prior, and I purposely waited to I just purposely waited. Like, I didn't do like I did it back in November. I purposely waited. And I feel like at that time, I felt like I was failing. Like, I felt like I was going to fail because I was going to finish early. And then today, I got up and I was thinking, okay, now I need to get my writing in. What am I going to work on? And I wanted to work on all 3 projects, but I'm at a point in one project that I want to wait until this week, this coming week, to actually work on that. So I was thinking, okay, where am I at with these projects and what am I going to work on? I kept telling myself, only work on one, only work on one. And then as I sat there and I was trying to write this morning and my mind was in like 20 different places, I realized it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where my mind is. It doesn't matter if I finish Camp Nano early. It doesn't matter if I don't finish it at all. What matters is that I put my all into everything that I'm doing. I realized it doesn't matter when I finish, because my goal for Camp Nano is to finish Project Kiss, finish my Wattpad story, and finish plotting a whole new story or a whole new novel. It's to finish. It doesn't matter. It's not a goal of saying I have to finish on April 30th. It's not my goal. I just want to finish. And so I woke up today and I was writing, and that hit me, and I was just like, it was like a weight was lifted off me. The stress was gone. The fear was gone. And my mind just went to, I'm going to work on what I want to work on each day. And if I don't finish one, I don't finish one. But my goal is to finish all 3. And as long as I finish all 3, it doesn't matter when I finish them, as long as I get them finished. And that is what I feel like made my writing experience a little bit better today. So now let's get into talking about the projects. So I have Project Kiss, my Wattpad story, and my plotting. So let's talk Project Kiss. Project Kiss is the big goal that I have that I want to finish for Camp Nano. It's a big goal, the one that I really do want to finish, that it will matter to me whether or not I finish it. And I started 4 days early with the midpoint. I wrote the midpoint and the chapters that went after, leading up to the next beat in my beat sheet. So I realized, okay, this is gonna work for me. I've got it. It's great. And I started writing, and my original goal was to take the last half of Act 2 and stretch it over the first 2 weeks of April, and take the last 2 weeks of April for Act 3. But now that I'm working and I'm realizing that's not going to be the case. I am literally about to start the last chapter of Project Kiss, and I want to do that tomorrow. End it tomorrow on day 6 and just be really happy with it. I'm feeling happy with where I am. I'm averaging about a chapter a day if I write on it a day at all. I'm averaging about, I don't even know how much I'm averaging word count wise. I just know that I'm writing it down on my phone, writing it down in my Excel sheets, keeping track of all my word counts for Camp Nano, just so that at the end I can figure out how many word counts I added to each story, and then just everything. So overall, Project Kiss is going way better than I thought it was going to, with a little bit of tweaking to the plot and a little bit of tweaking to the beat sheet. Prior to Camp Nano, I feel like I am set. I do not, absolutely do not regret starting 4 days early with Project Kiss, because I really think that that 4 days of reacquainting myself, reworking the beat sheet, you know, putting my mindset in the right place where I know where I want the story to go, helped me after a month of not writing on it. So Project Kiss, so far, week 1 is a go. Next, let's talk about my Wattpad story. My Wattpad story is a little different compared to Project Kiss. My Wattpad story was something that was just happened on a whim. I started writing on it. It's a fan fiction, and so I started writing it with no intention of adding it to my April goals. Like no intention of that. And then it just happened, and I don't know if it just happened because I, you know, let it happen, or if it was because I was so invested in actually like writing it. I don't know. I don't know how it ended up in my Camp Nano goals, but it is. The difference between Project Kiss and my Wattpad story is Project Kiss is outlined with the beat sheet, where I'm completely pantsing my fanfiction, other than the characters of the actual books that I'm actually using to inspire this fanfiction, and just a little bit of plotting, a little bit of figuring out character-wise and character relationships, but that's it. Like, I don't know where the story is going. So I don't know where it's going. Like I said earlier in this video, I said I have between 8 and 15 chapters, and that's probably it. That's probably correct. I'm about to start writing chapter 20 whenever I write on this project again, and it's so weird because I just don't know. Like, I know I can envision how I want the story to end. I just have to get from this point to this point and make it mesh together, and right now I don't know how to do that. So right now, I do think that I'm going to end up finishing Wattpad story early. I don't know how early. I don't even know if it'll be like a full 30 days. I don't know. I just know that I'm working on it as best as I can. And I mean, I'm having success with it. I've only disliked one chapter. And I mean, I can change it when I edit the book anyway. So that's something else. So yeah. Wattpad story, I mean, I feel good about it, but I'm on the fence. Now, lastly, my plotting. My plotting kind of just came up on day 2 out of nowhere. I knew I wanted to plot, and I was sitting there thinking, okay, I want to plot a book. What do I want to write about? What do I want to write? And in my head, I was like, retelling. And I was like, why do I want to write a retelling? I don't really read retellings, so why would I want to write a retelling when I have no idea how to do that? But because I had retelling stuck in my head, I just started thinking back through my favorite Disney stories, with no intention of actually creating a retelling, but just kind of like for inspiration. I looked at, you know, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Cinderella, and once I hit Cinderella, an idea struck my head, and characters started forming in my head, backstories started forming in my head. I literally, like, when I started, like, thinking about plotting and thinking about these books, I did not expect this to come out of it. Like, I did not expect to just instantly have all of the stuff that I needed. And what I mean about all the stuff that I needed is I had a blurb. Like, I never have blurbs when I start writing my stories, or even using my beat sheet for Project Kiss. I had no blurb, like none. I had a blurb for my plotting, which I'm calling Project Gold. And I'll tell you why about that in a minute, but I had a blurb. I literally, like, was sitting there thinking about Cinderella and her story, and, you know, kind of how Cinderella kind of related to me, but kind of didn't. And this idea stuck out in my head, so I grabbed a notebook. Actually, I grabbed this notebook and I flipped to a page and I started writing. I wrote the entire blurb with no names, no nothing, just I wrote the blurb. And then I took the blurb and I typed it into my computer, and then I started forming like a list of all the characters I needed to come up with, you know, things about the characters that I needed to know. I even started my beat sheet from just my blurb. Like my blurb kind of talked through the plot, and I really liked that. Like I really liked that I had the plot in my blurb. So I had that all written down. I started plotting the first 4 beats. So Act 1 is completely plotted. I had my blurb completely done, and I was just super excited. So going from that, where I am now, I have Act 2 and Act 3 to plot out in the beat sheet, and I'm done. I have descriptions, you know, I went as far as birth dates and like just birth dates. I went as far as, you know, writing a few little backstories about both of my main characters, and I became really invested in my 2 main characters for the story. And one, because I kind of relate to her, and another because I want him to relate to her. So there's all of that. Let's talk about why I'm calling Project Gold Project Gold. Now, when I first started writing this, I was thinking about working titles or possibly even a book title for this, because I like to have some kind of title for it, working title anyway, and I just couldn't come up with one. Everything that I was coming up with had something to do with Cinderella, and that was because I was thinking of Cinderella when I actually came up with the idea. So I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? How am I going to name this, work on this, do whatever it is I need to do with this if I can't come up with a working title? I can't just leave it blank, and I don't want anything to do with Cinderella in the title, because at one point I was considering naming my main female character some variation of Cinderella, like Cindy or Ella or Elle. I was just coming up with so many different like variations, and I was like, oh, that's a cute name. Maybe I can name the book this. And I didn't want that. So I didn't want anything to do with that. So I was looking around just for some kind of working title inspiration. And I looked at the notebook I was writing in, and this is what the page looked like, blank. And up here, all these dots and this thing that says so many, in the square that says so many things, is gold. And I was like, huh, Project Gold. And I was like, that works. I'm gonna go with it, and that's what we're gonna do. Super excited to tell you guys that I have worked on pretty much all 3 of my projects for 4 out of the 5 days that we've already had in Camp Nano. And I'm super excited because I love working on all of these, and I'm loving watching them grow and knowing that they're gonna finish soon, and my heart just swells thinking about it. So I'm so happy about that. I'm so happy that I got to explain to you guys how I came up with the working title of Project Gold, and just talking you guys through my stress and my fears from earlier in the week, and just absolutely everything. The end of week 2 for Camp Nano, and I am super excited to talk to you guys about this week and everything that happened. If you guys aren't following my Bookstagram account, you guys probably don't know this, but I dropped the titles and mock covers for both Project Kiss and my Wattpad story. So if you did not see those, Project Kiss is titled Moving On, and my Wattpad story is titled The King's Daughter. So if you have not seen those, go to my Bookstagram account, which is linked in the description below, and check those out. There are blurbs on there about both books, and I hope you guys like them. Comment on them and let me know what you think. So let's move on to something else that's not necessarily NaNoWriMo related right now. I mean, it is, but it's not. What I'm talking about is I started the process of plotting out book 2 for Project Kiss, Moving On. And I decided to start that process because I know I want this to at least have one book after it that follows a separate couple aside from Esme and Brooks. And so I decided to do that. But I ran into a bit of an issue with that. And the issue is I did not create a document like I do for every other book of anything. I did not create general descriptions. I did not create a list of jobs for anybody. I didn't create a list of intermingled relationships for anybody. Like, I didn't do that. And that is the hardest part for me, is that I didn't do that. So I have to wait to kind of sort of go through and start plotting this whole book until I get all of that information done. So I can't really figure things out. Like, I have to know the next two characters, what their careers are. I have to know who they're friends with, who they're related to. I have to remember what descriptions I gave them in book 1, because I don't want to describe somebody, for example, as having long red hair in book 1, but short black hair in book 2, because it's just not going to flow, and I just feel like that'd be crazy. And so I need to go through and I need to figure that out. And so that is why I'm not calling that a project for Camp Nano, because I can't really do any of that until I do my read through of Project Kiss, and I can't gather that information until I actually do the read through. Start with my Wattpad story, aptly known as The King's Daughter. So the road to get to where I was to end the book, which I did end up doing, was hard. It was really hard because I had created a list of chapters that I needed to do for the end result that I wanted originally. But in doing that, I created a big problem. One of the chapters I put in there just wasn't going to make sense. Like, was not going to do that, and I wasn't going to put myself through writing that chapter just to have to go through when I actually start doing edits and revising on that story to take it all out and just redo it, because then it would throw my readers off if I took a complete chapter out and added something new in its place, and so I did not want to do that. So when I nixed that chapter, I was originally just planning on moving the final 2 chapters up into that slot, so then I was just keeping the end of the book, just not bridging it with what I was going to do. But I couldn't do that because after I did that, after I took out that chapter, the last 2 chapters involved that chapter I took out. So then I had to nix all 3 of those chapters total. And that's when plot holes started forming in my head. Plot holes like, what was I willing to put my characters through to get to the end of the book? What was I wanting the end to actually be like? What was I wanting to happen at the end of this book? What was I willing to do as a writer to get to the end of the book that I wanted? And I had 3 different endings in my head. I had 3 different sets of 3 chapters in my head. And I really just had to sit down, buckle down, and just focus on The King's Daughter and figure out how I wanted it to end. Once I figured out how I wanted it to end, I knew roughly how the chapters needed to go. But even though I knew how the chapters needed to go, I struggled to get the words on the page, because even though I knew what I wanted to happen, to actually vocalize it in the story was really hard. So finishing The King's Daughter was very tough. I eventually got it. I eventually got the chapters I wanted, and I eventually got the words out. And when I finished and I hit save for the last time on Wattpad, I was ecstatic. Project Kiss. First of all, I finished it. I literally just got done writing the very last chapter of that book. It's done. It's 52,637 words done. I'm excited. I'm super happy I finished it, but the road to get here was a little wonky. This week was a good success. I was writing every day. I basically had a lot of stuff that was going on, but this week was a little rougher. I had my beat sheet, I was following it, and I ran into quite a few issues. The biggest issue being, I kind of jumped the gun, and as I was reading my beats in my beat sheet, I kind of made the mistake of only reading half the beat and saying, oh, I know right where I'm going with this, and writing a chapter and being fine, highlighting that beat, saying it's done, you know, all that stuff. And then I'd get to the point where I had to start a new beat, and then I'd be like, wait, I already wrote that. Like, what? So then I'd go back and I really had wrote it. I just split the chapter of the beat before it into 2 or 3 and kind of included that beat into it. So I kind of had to adjust and edit and kind of work chapters in that really needed to have bigger chapters or whatever. So I had to work them in. That was one of the hardest things, is writing beats before I was actually ready to write the beats. So I had to manipulate the story, kind of edit a little bit to get it where I wanted it to be. Was, even though I had my beats, even though I knew where I wanted the story to go, I kind of had struggles with it. I got to the point where I had what I thought was 7 chapters left, ended up turning out to be 6, and then it ended up turning out to be 5, and then it turned out to be 4, and then it turned out to be 3, and then I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. And I was deleting chapters, trying to add chapters in, trying to figure things out in my chapter map of where I needed to go. But the biggest problem was I didn't know how I wanted to end the book. I had 2 chapters left. I was 1 day away from finishing both my Wattpad story and Project Kiss all on the same day. I had it in my head to do it, and then I woke up sick, and I just couldn't do it. And so all day long, I thought about how I wanted to end the books. I knew right where I wanted to go with Wattpad because I had already figured that out. So I was sitting there thinking about Project Kiss. I had it all figured out in my head, and then the weekend. So with the weekend came a lot of challenges. We shop every other Saturday for groceries. This Saturday happened to be that. We had Easter on Sunday, and so it was a family day for that, and there was so much going on that I lost every bit of progress I had in my head from Friday. And I knew I should have wrote on Friday. I just didn't feel good. And when you don't feel good, you don't focus. And I did not want to test my focus. So fast forward to Sunday night. One of my best friends from high school, she reached out to me and she said, hey, can you read this description of a book that I'm working on? And I said, sure, why not? Like, let me do that. So I read it and I gave her my critique on it. And she wrote a chapter on it and she had me read the chapter. And I gave her my critique on that. Then we started talking about her book. She started talking about how, she was confused, like she knew where she wanted the story to go, but couldn't figure out the ending, how she wanted her characters to interact, but didn't really know how that was going to go, all of those things. And then she asked me, hey, how's your story going? And I said, well, I'm stuck. And she goes, what do you mean you're stuck? And I said, well, I don't know how I want to end the book. I'm 2 chapters away from ending the book. I need to bridge the gap between this chapter and the epilogue. And I don't want them to be so close together that they feel like it's rushy. And she said, yeah, I get that. She said, so tell me what your options are. So I told her my options. I told her the 3 different ideas I had for endings. The surprise twist ideas that I had that I wanted to throw in there. She said, hey, I like this twist, but I like this ending. I just don't know what would fit the story better. She said, without reading the story, without reading any of the chapters of the story, and knowing just what you told me, I can't decide. I can't make that decision. She said, but it's always better to try something new than it is to stick with a norm. So she kind of helped me. The morning was a tad bit different. I woke up, I went to bed knowing how I wanted to end the book. Like, I literally wrote the scene in my head last night, and I was like, oh, I'm going to remember this. I don't have to write it down. I should have wrote it down because I woke up this morning, once again, conflicted. I even went to my chat with my friend to see if I could make sense of what I wanted to do, and I couldn't do it. And so I'm sitting here, and I wrote one chapter, and I was like, okay, now I'm at the epilogue. How do I want this epilogue to go? I started the epilogue 4 times, you guys. 4 times. And then I said, well, let me read my beat sheet. Let me read my beat sheet and figure out where I'm at. And I figured out I'd already written the epilogue. What in my beat sheet was the epilogue, I wrote as a single chapter. So I had to edit that back in, and I had to edit all of that and make sense of all of that. And then I just kind of said, okay, I want that epilogue chapter that I wrote as a chapter to remain as a chapter. Now I want this to be something more, something to go along with that chapter that kind of might lead into the next book. And so I completely changed my last beat at the last minute, and I wrote this last chapter that I was originally going to have as an actual chapter with a different epilogue, but I just decided to write it as the epilogue and leave it not necessarily a cliffhanger, but might be a cliffhanger. And I ended the book. So let me explain this. I, not at all, at any point when I started Camp Nano, thought that I was going to finish any of my 3 project ideas in the first 2 weeks. I thought it was going to take me a lot longer to plot because when I decided to plot a story, I had no idea what the story was going to be, no idea whatsoever. when I was writing my Wattpad story, I had no idea what I was going to do for that story. I knew that it was going to be longer than 20 chapters, but fewer than 40, but I didn't know how long it was going to take me. I didn't know how often I was going to write that story, and I didn't know where I was going to take the story. Project Kiss, I knew where I was taking the story. I had all my beats. I had a plan. And then things just kind of sped up a lot quicker than I thought. And so even though I finished early, I feel very accomplished. I feel like I won Camp Nano. But that just doesn't mean that I'm done with Camp Nano. That doesn't mean any of that. That just means I'm moving on to other things. Other things like starting book 2 of my Black Dagger Brotherhood fan series. That's going to get started really soon. Another thing that might get started really soon is I might start reading through Project Kiss. That is definitely something that I might start doing. The reason I might start doing this is because the very first couple of chapters were written in January. It is now February, so half of the book has sat for almost 2 months. And so I feel like if I started reading now, I could kind of just like start making editorial notes, things that I will need to change when I start draft 2, which I have no idea when I'm going to start draft 2, so we'll see. Just some of the things that I can do moving forward for the rest of Camp Nano. I do also plan on reading more books. I do also plan on doing quite a few other things that I'm not going to go into detail on. So that's it. So that's it, guys. That's it for this 2-week Camp Nano check-in. I'm super excited. The first 2 weeks have been super successful, and I can't wait to see what the last 2 weeks give me. And I just can't wait to check in with you guys and give you guys a full update for how Camp Nano went for this month. So I will see you guys in the next video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below how your Camp NaNoWriMo is going, or if you finished any of your Camp Nano projects. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.